Some Colorado fans are in a bit of a tizzy right now, and maybe they should be. We get it. Our number twos, much like your number twos, we're about to talk about. Some Steelers country wanted Shedeur to be drafted last night. It appears to me as they're making the right decision, sticking with the right guy at the right time, which is Mason Rudolph. But have no fear, it could circle back around just like it did for Mason.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can get $250 back in bonus bets when your first $5 hauler is a winner. Head on over to FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we're going to get started in the conversation of the NFL Draft. What is seemingly the biggest story thus far is the fact that Shedeur Sanders slid out of the first round, and we kind of get it because some Steelers fans are up in arms as well with CU Buff Nation about not drafting Shedeur. However, Mason Rudolph, if you go back and look at Tennessee, was definitely better than Will Levis, which is why the Titans were able to match any offer that Mason Rudolph was able to get. Yet, for some reason, even though Mason wasn't exactly treated the best in Pittsburgh by Steeler faithful, he wants to return because he feels like he has unfinished business as a Steeler. You have to be able to appreciate that one in Steeler country, just like you have to be able to appreciate the fact that they gave Mason a first-round draft grade, and really the only quarterback in college that was able to best Mason Rudolph was Baker Mayfield. And those battles for Bedlam with Mason throwing up 500 yards and Baker throwing up 600 yards over and over again, of course, it was fun to watch. It also led to some of the conversations about the Big 12 being nothing but a track meet. It was partially because of the success and talent of the quarterbacks. You could even stay in the Big 12 and talk about the Sam Bradfords of the world, the Bryce Pettys of the world. You could even talk about the Patrick Mahomes of the world. There used to be a very good understanding that the quarterback play in the Big 12 was above most other conferences. And Shedeur Sanders now slides into that classification. Shedeur Sanders is a very, very good quarterback. Is he a first-round quarterback? I don't know. And the same conversation could have been had about Mason Rudolph. Very, very, very good quarterback, but was he a first-round quarterback? There were some teams that did designate him as such, much like the Pittsburgh Steelers, so they felt like it was a steal to get Mason the 76th overall pick. Shedeur Sanders could receive the same thing, maybe not from Pittsburgh, but circling the wagons and getting a potential first-round talent in the late second, early third rounds is still a viable possibility. Some people would consider that sliding down pretty far in the draft, but if you look at Mason Rudolph and Shedeur Sanders, their years major programs aren't exactly similar, but when you combine the Jackson State years for Shedeur Sanders, that puts him over the 14,000-yard mark in passing. Mason Rudolph is just under the 14,000-yard mark at like 13,600 some odd. So numerically, there are some differences. Now, he did that for a couple years at Jackson State. Mason Rudolph did that the entire time in the Big 12 against the Texases, OUs, Kansas States, Iowa States of the world. So I do think that it is a little bit different. So if you fast forward to Shedeur Sanders, 2 years at Colorado, ironically enough, Shedeur Sanders, best year between Jackson State and Colorado up until this previous season would have equaled Mason Rudolph's worst year as a Cowboy starting quarterback. Shedeur left Jackson State throwing for 3,721 yards. Mason Rudolph's worst year as a starter was 3,770 yards. And Shedeur Sanders' best season as a Colorado Buff was pretty impressive, but it still was not the same as Mason Rudolph's because 4,134 yards for Shedeur is not the same thing as 4,904 yards for Mason Rudolph. Their attempts are pretty comparable. Touchdowns are pretty comparable. There's a lot of similarities that you can see between Mason and Shedeur. So I am saying that the Steelers are making the right decision at the moment by sticking with Mason because seemingly Aaron Rodgers is still kind of toying around with the idea. And more it appears as though he might not take that leap. So the Steelers are going to need to draft a quarterback just for future purposes. They tried the hometown Kenny Pickett thing. It didn't exactly work out. Mason Rudolph, I think, had proved at Tennessee and during his times as a Steeler, he was better than most of the guys that were put next to him or in front of him. Big Ben derailed his career. Nobody can argue otherwise. And just like Big Ben derailed James Washington's career. But now Mason gets the team back up with Jalen Warren, and Colorado fans need to chill out a little bit because Shedeur does still have some things, right? The way he pats the ball, the way he kind of doesn't feel the pressure all the time, and he stands in the pocket a little bit unnecessarily. Those are some of the same things that were said about Mason Rudolph. And his hand size was a little bit of a difficulty for teams to get over, especially if he's going to be in a cold weather environment. Mason's been able to dispel some of those myths, but some of them have kind of popped up over time. Is he a bona fide, certified, baddest mamma jamma alive in the NFL? No, but neither was Geno Smith at one point in time. Neither was Sam Darnold at one point in time. Heck, even if you go back to Doug Flutie, some of these guys take a little bit of time to get the lay of the land and understand what they're supposed to do and what the role is going to be in the offense, regardless of who ends up being the quarterback in Pittsburgh, and regardless of if the Steelers do fact come back around and get Shedeur like they did to Mason. This season should be fun for Steelers country. You have a playoff level team, and when you have Pickens and DK Metcalf on the outside, I feel like whomever wins this quarterback job, whether it be Mason or if they do get Aaron Rodgers or they do draft Shedeur Sanders or another quarterback, those are two weapons that are really hard to beat, and they have really good tight end play in Steeler country. The O-line might still need a little bit of work. Defense might need some pieces still here and there, but nonetheless, this is a playoff team right here and now. Whether it's Mason Rudolph or somebody else, that seems to be the common consensus. And I didn't understand the parallels between Shedeur and Mason until I started looking up the stats. And statistically, they have done a lot of the same things. The only biggest discrepancy is the difference between Jackson State and Colorado, right? 4 years of Big 12 play, 2 years of Big 12 play. But if you scoot all that aside, I do understand where Colorado country is coming from. The difference is they have been told over and over and over and over that he is a first rounder. He's going in the first round. He's going to go in the top 5. The Ring of Honor thing is an embarrassment, though. I don't care who you are. Everybody in Colorado country would probably agree. You don't put somebody in the Ring of Honor that just left. That was good, but I mean, he didn't do anything super crazy. Travis Hunter, maybe being on the Ring of Honor, not even a year out of graduation. Okay, maybe he won the Heisman, but nobody's fooled by Shedeur Sanders being up there when you have guys like Detmer that are not up there that did way more than Shedeur Sanders. And Mason Rudolph did not have a last name and a dad like Dion to help with presentations, to help with pushing GMs along. Is that happening? We don't know. But when you look at Shedeur versus Mason, they have far more in common than most people are going to realize. And when you combine his time at Jackson State from a yards statistical perspective, Shedeur and Mason are pretty close. And both of them had NFL-level wide receivers at their disposal. Both of them had very talented running backs that they could utilize. And both of them had subpar offensive lines for the most part. So, again, there's a lot of comparable traits that Shedeur has that Mason has. We felt this in Cowboy country. Was he a first rounder? Maybe, maybe not. He was absolutely surefire, bona fide second rounder all day, every day, and that didn't happen. So the Steelers, they got the gift of all gifts by getting Mason in the third round. I'm not saying Shedeur's going to slide that far. I think he's a second round guy, just like Mason was a second round guy. But it is possible, and it could still work out regardless. So Steelers country, chill out. Right now, you have the right guy. If Aaron Rodgers comes along, maybe that is more enticing. If they do get another quarterback, maybe it's a Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they kill it in rookie minicamp, and the conversation changes once again. But this dude, Mason Rudolph, helped you get to the playoffs a couple different times. He didn't really get rewarded for it. He won you games that you absolutely had to have at times. Didn't really get a lot of love for it. Then he goes to Tennessee, proves that he's better than Will Levis, and he's now finally getting some love for that. And it being back in Pittsburgh, to me, is a little bit of a risk. I think Mason, should have potentially looked at the way the fan base treated him, talked about him, so on and so forth. But it is admirable that Mason wanted to go back to Pittsburgh instead of take the same amount of money elsewhere. And Steelers country needs to embrace what Mason is willing to do for you, and also embrace the fact that you got a steal in Mason that had a first-round draft grade from your front office, you might be able to get the same thing again in Shedeur. Perhaps this wheel rolls back around just like it did for Mason Rudolph. And if that happens, I think everybody should take a little bit of a breath. It's going to be okay. It's also going to be okay for you if you have the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to TV and gaming. That biggest bang for your buck is definitely going to be Amazon Fire TV. You know, Fire TV is the best, but did you also know that it's compatible with Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire Stick TV 4K devices. There's not a console even required. Grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included. You'll be ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA, College Sports, Football 25, Call of Duty, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It is gaming made simple, and it's all available on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6-6E and auto-low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning-fast speeds, so you'll always be able to stay competitive. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes as well from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and many more. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost without a console. If you already have a console, that works too. A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you and your kids' games wherever you need to plug in. You need to head on over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. That is Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On, all combined. Get the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, and compatible controllers are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4 Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and the Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Get squared away today. Go to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On, all one word, to get the biggest bang for your buck in all of your TV and gaming needs with Amazon Fire TV today. Today, Junior. Now we get to move on to some of the other Cowboys that are going to be draftable guys. I don't think most of us expected Ollie Gordon to be part of the first-round conversation after this previous season. The 1,700, almost 1,800-yard Doak Walker Award season needs to be taken in consideration. Some of the things he did at the Senior Bowl and the Combine are also major factors here. There might be a little bit of a hesitancy, I know words are hard for me, in regards to his 40 time in the Combine, but I did reach out to his private running back coach that had been there for him even in high school, and the first thing he said to me was, there's a reason that Ollie ran the 200 instead of the 100. There's a reason he's better downfield than in a 40-yard dash, and I think a lot of teams are going to be able to see that. He put up impressive numbers at the bench. His shuttle time and everything seemed to look pretty daggone good, so he went from a top 20 pick, right? That was the analysis coming into this previous season. I saw anywhere from the 14th pick, 17th pick, 20th pick, 21st pick. He was hovering right around that 20 range in the first round coming into this previous season. Now, obviously, he helped our entire offensive line get paid, and they pooped the bed on his behalf. He still ended up with almost 900 yards rushing, getting hit in the backfield over 51% of the time, and that is something that NFL executives should look at. So, should Ollie Gordon go in the second round? Abso-flip-and-lutely. Do I think he's going to go in the second round? Probably not. Primarily because running backs are one of those positions that the more and more you look at the drafts over the last 10, 12 years, the more capable teams are getting bad mamma-jamma running backs in the third round, in the fourth round, in the fifth round. For whatever reason, partially I think might be just due to the longevity of the position. Right? Most of your running backs don't last in the NFL, but more than a few years. And the ones that do are going to be kind of legendary status. So I think that might be part of the equation. And with that being said, if you have a top-level dude like a Derrick Henry, you know you can go get a Jaylen Warren in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. You don't know that they're going to be able to be as productive as Jaylen Warren, but you do know that they should be able to be a viable piece of the offense. So I definitely think Ollie Gordon's ability, his size, strength, skill, speed, what he showcased in between the Combine, the Pro Day, and the Senior Bowl are all things that should keep him in the second round conversation. So much like Colorado fans are a little bit in a tizzy that Shedeur didn't go in the first round, I think we should be in a bit of a tizzy if Ollie doesn't go in the second round, even though it's more likely that he lands in the third. That is going to be my prognostication here. If he goes anywhere outside of the third round, that's an absolute travesty, and somebody's absolutely screwing the pooch here. But outside of Ollie Gordon, we also had Nick Martin performing in the Combine, Pro Day, Senior Bowl, all of that, alongside Colin Oliver. So those seem to be the most likely candidates to have the capability to fall in the top half of the draft. Do I think that those individuals could potentially slide into the second round? Probably not. But Nick Martin should be in this third round, possibly fourth round conversation. You just cannot replicate that amount of productivity. When you lead the country in tackles, 140 tackles a couple of years ago, there's a large portion of us that understand that the defensive line hasn't really been helpful in Stillwater. So Nick Martin was doing a lot of this largely off of his capabilities, his speed. The knock on him is going to be he's just under 6 foot. Just like Malcolm Rodriguez put up enough numbers to be a fourth round, third round kind of guy. He slid back because of his size. That could be a little bit of the conversation here for Nick Martin. But again, I think guys like Malcolm Rodriguez should open some doors and make people realize that you don't have to be a 6'3", 255-pound linebacker to do the daggone thing at the next level. So I do think that Nick Martin should be a third-round guy, probably more likely a fourth-round guy. A surprise that might be able to pop up in this whole ordeal is Trey Rucker. Whenever you have 232 some odd tackles in your college career at two different universities in the SEC, in the Big 12, does that not equal, or ACC and Big 12, does that not equal somebody that has drafting capabilities? So I expect Trey Rucker to be drafted as well. I think Dalton Cooper is another candidate that should fall in the latter half of this equation. Colin Oliver very well should be a fifth round-ish guy. So I think Ollie could go in the second. He should go in the third. Nick could go in the fourth, probably should go in the fifth. Colin Oliver, it just from the tweener angle, right? He seems to be a specialist, and that sometimes is frowned upon, especially in the NFL. And because of that, he might slide back to the sixth-ish round, potentially seventh. And I think Dalton Cooper is another individual that could fall in this 6-7 round conversation. So I think there are a handful of Cowboys that definitely should get drafted, but there's also going to be some individuals that don't get drafted but still get the UFA unsigned free agent deal. And that will allow people to kind of, carve out a nice little role here. Seemingly, Ollie Gordon, Nick Martin, Colin Oliver are the best bets to be drafted. And I think that is fair. Are they going to get drafted probably lower than they deserve to be? Unfortunately, that's probably also accurate. And then you're going to have the guys like Trey Rucker and Dalton Cooper and Brennan Presley that absolutely deserve to be drafted, but might not. From a production standpoint, Brennan Presley is number one in Oklahoma State history in receptions for a reason. He's top 10 in a lot of Oklahoma State historical connotations. And historically, Oklahoma State has been able to pump wide receivers and running backs in the NFL over and over. This is almost a yearly expectation. Some other positions, maybe not so much. But now the linebacker has some emergence because it's not just Malcolm Rodriguez. It's not just what Devin Harper was able to do with the Dallas Cowboys for a few years or what Amen and Mamiga was able to do as a Charger and now getting another extension yet again as a Chicago Bear. Are they the focal points? Not always, but the linebacker position at Oklahoma State has proven over the last handful of years that we can put guys in the NFL. They're ready for the NFL. They can produce in the NFL. And I think that some of these guys like Nick Martin and Colin Oliver should also fall in that conversation. But again, Colin Oliver's not truly a defensive end. He's not really a linebacker. And that might be something that causes him to fall potentially out of the draft. I do still think talent and his specialty of getting to the quarterback should get him drafted. Just like I think the production of Trey Rucker is absolutely getting overlooked. The production of Brennan Presley absolutely getting overlooked. And guys, let's face it. Do you want a bunch of 6'4", 220-pound dudes that can run a 4.5 40 as a wide receiver? Absolutely, right? You could prefer if they ran a 4.4 40. But the days of the X and the Z controlling everything, they're kind of dead, right? Your Tyreek Hills, your Danny Amendolas, your Wes Welkers, your Julian Edelmans. Cooper Kupps of the world have proven that if you have adequate play at the slot receiver position, not only does it help with the spacing for the offense to operate a little bit more efficiently, it gives an additional target, kind of a safety blanket at times to the quarterback. But typically your slot receivers are going to be the make you miss guys. And that's precisely what Brennan Presley is. He's got returns for touchdowns, so he can compete in special teams right away. His size is going to be the only knock. He doesn't typically drop passes. He doesn't have problems with injuries. On the other side of the coin, he battled through tons of injuries and still started almost every single game. The number of starts, the number of receptions, the amount of yards, the amount of make-you-miss capabilities, the yards he has on returns, that versatility, I think, is something that should get Brennan Presley drafted. It would be a travesty if Brennan Presley, Dalton Cooper, and Trey Rucker just absolutely don't get drafted whatsoever. But one of those three, if they do not get drafted, will make a name for himself at the next level. Another thing that we might need to take into consideration is the UFL. I pitched this to a couple individuals this previous season. Like Leon, I think he could absolutely make a killing in the UFL. But, you know, he had a little bit of a run in the NFL. He battled through injuries up there with the Chargers, and that kind of led to a little bit of a derailment for him. And I think some of these individuals might have the same conversation. I think Xavier Benson doing some things in the UFL should be huge for him, and it could begin another pipeline conversation, if pipeline is even a word, the pipeline of a conversation of Cowboys to the UFL. Because we have positions that make it a lot in the NFL. We have some guys that should make it in the NFL. You let me know down in the comment section. What do you think about Ollie going in the third? What do you think about Nick Martin going in the fourth? What do you think about Colin Oliver going in the sixth or seventh? What do you think about Dalton Cooper, Trey Rucker, Brennan Presley squeezing into that 6th, 7th round conversation? Let me know down in the comment section below. Meanwhile, we're also going to talk about your ability to bankroll some NBA action. FanDuel is the bee's knees for all your betting needs. Of course, you guys know that, but you also know that this is NBA playoff season, and there's not a better way to get in on the action than with FanDuel. Right now, you can join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet to get $250 back in bonus bets if it's a winner. You're going to love how FanDuel makes it easy for you to win, whether you're picking your favorite team, diving into player props, 3-point steals, assists, dunks, blocks. FanDuel has what you need to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can now combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for the most chances to win. Get in on this Thunder action. Get in on Cade Cunningham, Lindy Waters III, and the Detroit Pistons action. You're not going to want to miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 back in bonus bets if your first $5 hauler is a winner. Do that today with the bee's knees and all of your betting needs as the NBA playoffs provide us a ton of excitement. Go get in on the action with FanDuel today. All right, so common consensus seems to be with having conversations with some of the players, both staying and leaving, some of the individuals that were there for some of the practices, some of the extreme camp individuals that were also there for certain portions of time. The common consensus going out of these exit meetings for, like, say, Garrett Rangel and even some of the running backs is how you're going to fit into this system. And the system that we were running is not going to work. The system needs to take a little bit more of a maturation process. And from both the quarterback position and the running back position and the wide receiver position, the conversations being had are, well, we have to do X, Y, and Z because of some of the limitations we have with the line. Perfect example, Garrett Rangel, of course. He's not fast enough to do what we have to do offensively when Zane and Haas are. At least that's the conversational piece. Do I think Garrett's fast enough to do what they're talking about? I think he is. Is he as fast as Haas? Well, absolutely not. Not very many players on the team are faster than Haas. But could he do the same things? Possibly. Nonetheless, we decided to go with the upside and future as opposed to the here and now. That is our prerogative as a coaching staff, so we're going to be able to just roll with it and potentially have a lot of fun this year. But even from the running back position, there were some running backs that were told that, you're going to be bumped down a little bit on the depth chart. seemingly for the same reason. Because of the inability for the offensive line to do consistent run blocking, we're going to have to get more creative. So we're going to have to go back to a little bit more of that Kittle Hunter, Dontrell Savage style system. But even then, you do have to have the ability to mix and match, right? You want to have some Thunder guys, you want to have some Lightning guys. So I don't think we want to completely alienate one particular type of player yet. There is tons of conversations about how the offensive line is still a little bit of a problem. And because of that problem, we're kind of putting a massive Band-Aid on it at the moment, right? We're going to kind of shift the line side to side, and we're going to buy a little bit more time with mobile quarterbacks getting out of the pocket. Some of it's going to be by design, which means we should have some more shots downfield, but it also means that you could have some issues with injury. And that is the biggest difficulty with Garrett Rangel, Milwaukee, entering the transfer portal, is most everybody's going to be pretty happy, I think, with the idea of the 6'3", 215-pound Zane Flores taking some of those Garrett Rangel snaps in the fall. Just like most people are going to be pretty excited about the elite speed of Haas Haney being faster than Spencer Sanders and a little bit stronger as well. The dynamics to this offense could be explosive. Yet, if you continuously have O-line issues that we've had for the last couple seasons now, what happens if one of these guys get hurt? Right? That's the concern for me. And if you know that we have some problems on the offensive line still that we have not been able to fully address, we've been able to land a couple of guys in the portal. I think, Samuel's obviously absolutely massive from Appalachian State. He was on the top 10 most available or best available transfer prospects by 247 when we were able to land him. So that's going to help a lot. But we need more. We've got another individual that was on campus yesterday, another big-time offensive lineman. Hopefully, he joins the fold here pretty quickly because this is the area where we need help. And at the moment, some of the running backs and primarily quarterbacks, it does affect the wide receivers to some degree, but not as much. But there's some quarterback and wide receiver conversations being had about how we're going to have to kind of make some adjustments still on the offensive line. We haven't got it narrowed down. And the mobile quarterback is going to be instrumental to the success of this team, just like having a running back like a Rodney Fields, like a Sesi Vailahe or Caleb Hicks are going to be absolutely huge in having that cutback capability. The zone blocking scheme is kind of what I envision it looking like with some RPO stuff. And that's because of the offensive line. And you saw it in the spring game. We didn't necessarily see like the starting unit, and I've been led to believe that's by design. We didn't have the quote-unquote what we think is going to be starting five because it might show some inconsistencies. So we did a lot of mixing match, right? There was a couple first-team guys with some fourth-team guys, some second-team guys, mixing with some third-team guys. And that was all over the field, of course, but primarily more so on the offensive line. So, yes, did Zane get sacked multiple times by Amon Oates? He did. Does that mean Zane had the worst day? No, it doesn't, because the offensive line, it's hard to have continuity and consistency when you're just doing a ton of mixing matching because we don't know what we have yet. What we do know is there's times that the defensive line is dominant. There's times that the quarterbacks have to be mobile even when it wasn't designed to be so. So we clearly have a big need here. So this is what we need to pay attention to in the transfer portal. Of course, we're continuously loading up on guys. And the more we load up, the more we hear about guys getting let go. Recently, Chris Robinson, the number one JUCO linebacker in the country, he's gone now as well. So we're filling gaps, but we're not hearing a lot about the offensive line gaps. So in Cowboy country, I think we should all be paying attention to between now and fall, the offensive line acquisitions are probably going to be an indication on what the offense might look like or shift to. Because if we do get a bunch of dominant O-linemen, then we don't need to do this cutesy-tootsy zone RPO style of getting everybody moving laterally conversation. You want to have the ability to go head up sometimes. We don't seemingly have that unless you have Trent Howell in the backfield. He's going to be a pseudo running back, fullback, offensive lineman mixed all together for us to have that kind of look from the running department. So look for O-line help because everything I've heard is we need it. All righty, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't like it. More importantly, my podcast people, you are everything. You know the drill. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. Later, taters.